All right, we will go ahead and get started. Councilmember Cohen will be with us shortly, and I think the mayor is on his way. But we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you very much, Scott, Tom, and the team. And what we do, simply we give you guys 15 minutes to present and open it for a Q&A for another 15 minutes. And if we go more than that, if we need some more time, we'll go ahead and take some more time. But good to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. My name is Willie Morris. I'm the land acquisition manager for MI Homes here in the Charlotte MSA. Patrick, thanks for helping us organize this. Yeah, I think this is a great forum and a great idea. I wish other municipalities would approach things the same way, help us get initial feedback on things like this. So a few months ago, I began speaking with Scott Vickery here and his broker Tom Auer about his land off Chestnut Lane. How do I manage the presentation? Is it?
Adjust it for you.
Is that all?
This is the only page I have.
That's the only presentation I have. I didn't receive another one.
Okay.
Do you have a flash drive we could use?
No, I didn't bring it up. That's fine. Well, it's okay. We can speak to everything if need be.
While they're checking to see what presentations they have, if you want to just chat. a little
Sure.
bit.
So the idea here, after talking to Scott for a little while, he was thinking that the highest and best use for his land here on Chestnut would possibly be a townhome project. He was familiar with us from over the years, interacting with us and with me in prior jobs, and with MI in general as they approached him on more of his land holdings. He knows we build a quality product, which is, I think, why he gave us the chance to try to make something work here. The plan that you see in front of you, I know it says 112 units. It actually is just 104 units. We had copied and pasted that unit count from a previous iteration. And so what you're actually seeing there is only 104 units. Our elevations, again, I wish we had the rest of the presentation, but the idea is to build front-load townhomes, hardy plank and brick siding. Brick probably only on the first level. These are two-car garages. Average square foot is about 1,900 square feet. Yeah, I've got a copy of the paper version. Yeah, okay. And so three units, basically. An in unit, which is a little bit larger, is about 2,100 square feet. Interior units, one's about 1,600, one's about 1,900. And so the idea here would be to provide a product at a price point that we think the market can bear. We've seen what's happened up the road with installings with a different builder. Their product is pretty basic looking, single car garage, 2-story, not a lot to it at all. Ours is much more architectural detail, 3-story and 2-car garage, and just a larger unit that we think the market here at Indian Trail is more interested in. So a little bit from MI, we're a super regional builder, publicly traded, but operating in about 16 markets, the Mid-Atlantic, Florida, the Midwest, and Texas. Here in Charlotte, we've got about 14 subdivisions under development right now that we're selling homes out of, with a few more ready to come online pretty soon. So we kind of operate, we target about 400 to 500 homes a year built and sold. We all know the location of the site. It's right back from the intersection of Monroe and Chestnut Lane, Old Monroe and Chestnut Lane. Again, 104 units. You've got if you get the presentation, you get a good picture of our elevations and the look of the units. This is exactly what we would build here. There's also representation of our entrance features and monumentation, floor plans, how the units lay out depending on the building size, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6 units. And we've had initial conversations with DOT. If you have questions about that, about traffic impacts and whatnot, Jared, oh, here we go. Oh, that looked like some of it.
We may have to look a little bit further for this, but
That's okay. If we don't have it, we can start answering questions, I think. I mean, I don't know what else to go. So if you want to,
Is this your presentation?
yeah.
Does council have this?
I'm looking at it. Yes, ma'am.
Do you need a copy? Do you need your copy?
No,
of
I've
that
got my own
presentation?
copy.
Okay.
Surely probably needs a copy.
You can just give it back to me.
Yeah, sure. There you go. You can just have it.
Mid-200s to 600s.
So the units would probably be priced starting in the mid 200s, pushing up to the high 200s, depending on the unit size and basically the options that our buyers will option up. So base pricing is about $250,000 on the smallest unit.
Are they age restricted at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
So 250 to like 300?
Yeah, 300 at the top end. Yep.
Okay. How many acres is this property?
It's about 20 acres. Yep.
It's Chestnut. That's it.
There you go. If you want to. Well, okay.
if you go left or right, you can.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm not getting anything from it. Sorry. It's on.
Can you work with the mouse, Mike? Can you run it, Michael?
That's okay. Well, you can. Well, there is the property and the from the overhead map. And if you want to scroll down really to our some of our pictures of our elevations, there we go. So we have a lot more architectural detail than the Ryan Homes project that's around the corner in Stallings. And I think that's what we wanted to make clear to you all is that it's the kind of thing where we think we're offering a lot more quality to the buyer here. And so, first of all, I wanted any questions on that. If there's any, if you had any feedback on elevations or otherwise.
You stated that it would probably be brick on the bottom. Do you build with all brick?
No, not in this type project. It would push pricing to a point that the market can't bear. But we can do it on you can see in the unit that we're looking at right here, wrapping the bottom level. But these are hardy plank units.
It
And-
seems, excuse me.
That's right, go ahead.
Mayor.
When you say brick on the bottom, right now I'm looking at hardy plank on the bottom as well. Is just the brick on the garage portion?
Well, no, it can be. It just happens to be the unit next to it is all hardy plank. This is a development down in Fort Mill that we're building the same townhome product in. And so
But you're proposing all brick on the bottom? that correct?
No, I'm not proposing anything. I wanted to get feedback first from you all on what you all would do. Putting brick on the bottom is potentially feasible, but it all, we'd have to look at, how that pushes the pricing of the overall units and so it's a possibility.
We'd asked you earlier about the pricing, and you said it was in the 200s and up high and on this paper here, where it says the Charlotte market, it shows at the 6.
Yeah, well, that's all of our product lines across all of Charlotte. So
Okay.
for family homes that are larger and in different markets, we can push to 500,000 or 600,000. Yeah, so you can get some. That's our end unit. The Camden is the largest of the units. This is about 2,100 square feet. All of them have basically come with a third-story loft that can be converted into a bedroom. So
Is the back end of this open with a lot of windows? Because the front end is sort of dark, like where you go into the doorway there.
I'm sorry. Is the back of the
The back of
units?
the house.
There are windows. It's not all windows, but there, I can get you rear elevations as well if you'd like. But there's not as much architectural detail on the back of the home as there is on the front. And this is some representation of some other entrances that we've done across Charlotte. Obviously we haven't gotten to the finer details of what we would do here, but it would be something along these lines, stone or brick, depending on kind of the overall feel of it and what our marketing team is really trying to target there. That's a question that will be answered a little bit later in the process. But I just want to give you all those two to look at. So.
So there's no clubhouse, no amenities?
There is not a clubhouse. There is a tot lot, and we'll program some of the other open space. We'll have a playground for the kids, but no, this is not this will not have a pool and cabana and that kind of.
Is there any stormwater concerns on this particular property?
Not at this time, but again, that will be a little bit further into the process when we get to fully engineering the site. But preliminarily, no. And I think Jeremiah, you can speak to that maybe if.
The high point of the drainage basin basically sits on the east side of this site. Everything drains to the left of the page, down where the BMP pond is proposed. We don't anticipate any issues with providing detention or water quality there.
This is Jeremiah Murphy, by the way. He's our land entitlement manager and development manager.
The land is presently zoned as,
Scott?
Site plan. SF1.
Yeah.
R20?
It's residential right now.
Yeah.
And this is directly across the street from where you all approved Presley Animal Hospital last year. He's currently grading that right now, and I think he's had a few delays with engineering, not even trail engineering, but engineering in general and whatnot, but he's back on track, and I spoke with him this afternoon, and he's getting it going. I think he'll be moving in the springtime. So some good activity on that end of the road, and we just felt like this was a really good spot for this townhome product. And the way they've laid this out, having some nice open space in there. They mentioned the tot lot, and as you go in on both the entrances, on the back side of those first two rows is a big open green space that's easily accessible, and also the pond. The way we pulled it out to the road, sort of amenitizes, is going to give Chestnut a nice streetscape there. So, Chestnut's a very pretty road right through there, and we want it to change, but we want it to be a good change. And I think they've accomplished that.
Scott,
Yes, sir.
are you involved in the process every step of the way in
Yes,
choosing the product line?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am.
Reason why I bring that up, council, is if you look through past experience with the Vickery family and projects that they've been involved with, they've always been A-plus projects looking for enhancing the town as opposed to overcrowding it or bringing it down. They've always made it better than than they found it.
Thank you, sir. And we took that into consideration about the site plan and whatnot. This is averaging about 5.7 to the acre. Generally in townhomes, you see, 7, 8, 9. The thing in Stallings is about 10 to the acre. And some sites can handle that, some sites support that. MI, their footprint for their townhomes is a little larger, a little wider than a lot of builders, which lends to it gives it more of a single-family feel in a townhome product. You see your two-car garages, that gives you room for a car and some storage, and then plenty of parking in front and whatnot like that. So we've taken a lot of those things in consideration of trying to make it user-friendly and to where there's a place for everything in that. And I feel like there's a good market for the townhomes. We've got to have some density. We've got to have some. I don't know that affordability is the exact right word I'm looking for, but you all know what can't every house be a $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 house? And these are sub 300s, but pushing that mark. And with that, this builder can put in some really good quality, but also have a mortgage that is palatable. So that's sort of what we're trying to walk that line of getting as much quality as we can in without just pushing it over the top, because God forbid we ever have an economic downturn. The first ones to fall are the $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 houses. We need houses for folks that are working folks that have, need a nice, good location, nice, convenient spot, and we feel like this meets the mark. It's raising the bar from some surrounding things, but you have to raise it a click or two at a time. You can't raise it 5 clicks, and I just think this is a very good product for the area.
Sorry, quick question.
Yes, sir.
How many units we're talking about?
104. Sorry, and that's unclear. The notes there say 112, but that was a miscount on our part. It's 104 units is what you're seeing there.
The site plan is correct.
Yeah.
Council, we're approaching 5 minutes if you want to.
One other
Give any
question. I see
feedback?
that you have a cul-de-sac right here, but on the other end of the project, it just looks like it's blocked off. How are y'all planning on having trash service, deal with that?
One of the streets provides a possible future connection, so it's a dead end. We try to keep those stubs short, typically within 150 feet. It's a backup movement.
Jeremy, we discussed this internally, and I think the only reason why we kept it, we thought it gives you access to the last unit, but the residential area in the back, I don't think we would like to see any connection to that. So if you could maybe replace that with a roundabout, I think it will serve the purpose, but there will not be any future connection through that existing residential neighborhood.
I have a question about the garbage. I know in Charlotte, and I lived in a townhouse in Charlotte, and you're talking about a garage. I had a one-car garage that I don't think we parked in more than twice ever, because that's the only place you ever had to put all your other stuff. So a two-car garage is nice. But one thing in Charlotte, they don't allow garbage trucks to come into like condominiums, townhomes, and that type thing. I don't even know what we do here. Do we do that? Do our garbage trucks go into?
So we don't go.
We don't go into apartment complexes, but we do service townhomes around town. We have some in a few neighborhoods that we service right now. We service them with a smaller truck. It's a 10 cubic yard truck.
Gotcha. I remember that well because when I lived in Charlotte, they went up on, your property taxes, and they went up on mine, but they didn't pick up my garbage because that was the rule. So I didn't quite understand that either. But you're not gonna have a dumpster or anything like that out
No.
there?
They roll
Just
out.
like everybody else.
And these streets are intended to be designed to public standards. We've got public widths and radii. They'll be turned over to the town. Circulation shouldn't be an issue. A little more about the site plan. We've got more than the town required on-street parking for neighbors and visitors, parking at both of the open spaces, CBU mailbox location up near the front, the first open space you approach. We provided 2 entrances. They don't meet DOT separation for full movement, so we anticipate a left turn lane at the lefternmost driveway, westernmost, and probably a right in, right out with a median at the second, just to keep traffic flowing and moving through there.
The street is not properly marked, but if you look down below, it is Chestnut, right?
Yeah,
Right,
that's my
correct.
fault.
All right.
Patrick, we're approaching 6 o'clock. Any final words by you or council?
Yeah, I mean, we could extend for a few minutes if council have additional questions. I do have a couple, if I could go ahead and sneak them in. The entrance and the exit and the area right there by Chestnut, is it draining back to the pond?
It will,
It will?
yeah.
Okay. That's all that I have.
Council, any further comments?
No.
Patrick, council, we're going to handle this like in the past, give suggestions over to Patrick, and he'll get over to Mr. Vickery and his staff?
That is correct. We'll collect any feedback from council.
Okay.
I'll put them in a comments format, send it to you guys, and then get your response.
Okay.
And if we could come back before council rather than go ahead and submitting plans, if there is something significant, we will do that. But if
Okay.
there isn't, then we'll let you know to go ahead and submit.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate your time very much.
Yeah, really appreciate it. It was helpful.
Always good to see you, Scott.
Thank you so much.
Some clarification on around cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
That's enough. I'm good. No.
250 to 300.
What, like 2 and 3 bedrooms, I guess?
Yes.
21 square feet on the biggest one.
Yes. Patrick, whenever they're ready.
Ready? Okay, council, the second team that we have here tonight is Selwyn Property Group. It's Pat and his team, and they're here with us today just to share their plan for the vacant buildings and associated parking lots and properties that exist at Radiator Specialty. Pat, simply 15 minutes to do a presentation. We'll open it to council and the mayor for any questions that they might have.
Sure, be happy to. We'll be very brief. Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name's Patrick Pierce. We're with, myself and John Phelps with me are with Selwyn Property Group. And we have under contract to purchase the Radiator Specialty buildings and on Radiator Road. And we really just wanted to introduce ourselves to you. We have, not that I don't know that we've done any business in Indian Trail before, so it's been a pleasure to get to know some of the planning staff and Patrick and others. We are under contract to buy this building, and I've got a couple slides here just to give you a sense of it, in case you, by chance, don't know where it is. Radiator Road, and y'all may be very familiar with this. I'm trying to flip these things. It doesn't seem to be. Well, this is us. I'll come back to that in a second.
Is it your down arrow? You pressing the down arrow?
Well, I'm kind of pressing all of them at this point. I may be doing it too.
We're just losing connection.
Is that what it is? You want to put it up on top here? Would that help? Okay.
Michael, why don't you take over? And that slide right there doesn't belong to it, but
See how well this works.
Okay.
Just,
It's not that we have that much to show you, but would like to share it. Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'll just ask you to change it. So this is, I don't know if you can tell where the site is outlined in red there. For some reason, I have a hard time seeing red. I don't know if anyone else has that. I need to have things outlined in something besides red, but that's it there. And then the next slide, I believe, is a little closer version. And, you know, the Harris Teeter distribution facilities, you know, right behind the CSX Railroad there. So that's 63 acres. It's in 2 buildings, roughly 325,000 square feet. We have, so we're under contract to purchase with Radiator Specialty. Actually, I have Aaron Martin, who's the VP of Administration for Radiator Specialty here. I'm going to ask him to speak in just a minute, but he is here as well. And our strategy on this really is to, well, Radiator Specialty is still going to have a presence there, first off. They are, so that they will still be in the facility. And then the balance of the facility, we're purchasing all of it, and then we'll really just try and refurbish it to the extent it needs to be refurbished, and then try and find other businesses to lease there. And those businesses, frankly, we don't know what those businesses might be. They could be manufacturing and or distribution would be the typical kind of uses. But sometimes when you have this space, you're not exactly sure who is going to show up to lease that. And that, as part of our due diligence, what we did then was come to sit down with the planners at Indian Trail, Rox and Katie, and let them know what we were doing. And then they showed us the UDO and the zoning table for this. And based on that, there were some gaps we felt were there, and that's why we're coming in for a text amendment. So they've given us some guidance on that. And I'd like to introduce Aaron for just a moment, let him speak to, because they've already done some work in that regard.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Pat. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Radiator Specialty Company. We have been here in Indian Trail for more than 50 years. The company is celebrating its 95th year of operations. You probably best know us for our brands Gunk and Liquid Wrench. But a very large company owned by the Blumenthals here, you know, been in Charlotte, like I said, for 95 years. And the facility was bought and purchased and developed over the last 50 years on the site that you see here. Currently, right now, as Pat said, about 325,000 square feet, primarily dedicated to manufacturing, distribution, and warehousing of chemical products. Those chemical products are largely aerosol products, but we also do liquid pour products, bulk fill, things of that nature. It is our intention, as Pat had mentioned, to stay here in Indian Trail with approximately 75 to 100 employees that would be working out of one of the buildings that you see there. The site is fantastic, as you see, 63 acres, very large buildings, very large space, ideally suited, currently really almost turnkey ready for another company to come in and take over, again, from a manufacturing or a warehousing or a distribution standpoint. As Pat had mentioned, we were about 9 or 10 years ago, I'm looking at the board and I see several of the council members I had met with a few months back. We were about 9 or 10 years ago zoned under what we felt like was an incorrect zoning. And we went through a rezoning effort really to set it up for when we were going to sell the property, being able to at least allow the continued use as we saw, as we were using it today. I think as we went through due diligence with Pat, we noticed that there were a few things that we probably should add to the current zoning, or the newly rezoned designation, and that's why we're here today. So I'm really here as, on behalf of the company, to answer any questions that you may have about Radiator Specialty Company, our future plans for the site, or any of our engagements with the Selwyn Group. Yes.
What gaps are you talking about? You mentioned that there are gaps in that exist
Yeah.
as of the rezoning that was just approved, but what gaps are you talking about?
I'll let Pat probably speak to that a little bit more, but again, I think what we found in the due diligence was that primarily was distribution and manufacturing were not specifically allowed in the new rezoning.
So we reviewed the table that y'all have for uses, and there were some, and our application, lays out the gaps that you've asked about. There are a couple of big ones. One was distribution and freight forwarding, and I'm not getting that exact wording right. There's, here it is right here. So the warehousing, wholesaling, and freight movement were not allowed in that. They are allowed for the light manufacturing zoning, but this is in a Sun Valley overlay district, and that is not allowed there. And that is something that we felt was pretty important for the use of the buildings, be it Radiator Specialty being there or us being there, to try and get that. That was the sort of the big one. The other ones were construction storage yard, commercial laundry services, vehicle sales, storage and service, RV or boat storage, vehicle storage and towing, general industrial, that was another big one, general industrial, and then recycling facilities indoors. And we know these things, all these, we don't know which of these uses will show up, and we know that there are other restrictions. If you have outside storage, you've got to buffer it and protect your neighbors and that sort of thing. But we wanted to have these uses be allowed if possible.
I will speak a little bit about the site, Pat, if I could.
Sure.
The site is fully enclosed. If you look at it, if you ever come out and visit, we're about a quarter of a mile down off of Old Monroe Road on Radiator Road, and then surrounded by a natural tree line. But between us and the Harris Teeter Distribution Center, which is at our back, is another 40 or 50 acres that separate the two entities, and again, primarily natural areas. So there is no visible sightline really from any of our surrounding neighbors, which is again one of the reasons why we wanted to have maximum flexibility for future use.
And so we put a text amendment in. I want to say thank you to Patrick and to Rox and to Katie and Gary Evans. Gary helped facilitate a lot of this as well. So we're taking the steps that they've asked us to take, and then that's why and we want to introduce ourselves to you all as well. So that's why we came here tonight, just to say hello and let you know who it was that was asking for these things, and answer any questions you may have about it. We're going through that process too, so there'll be that planning process, and I guess coming back to the council at some point next month.
So what part, Aaron?
Yes, sir.
Would be still under your control, and then?
Sure. If you wouldn't mind flipping back to the last slide, one slide after this. Sorry. No, you were going the right way. There you go. So if you see primarily two buildings, the building at the top, kind of farthest away from us,
Right.
is primarily office with some some warehousing space. The 75 to 100 jobs that would remain here in Indian Trail are going to be primarily office personnel, finance, marketing, accounting, logistics. We're not going out of business. I think that was one of the things we really tried to make clear when we came out and met last time. We're just simply outsourcing our manufacturing and distribution, but we will continue to play a large part in that decision. And again, we'd like to stay here in Indian Trail and would like to continue to work out of the facility we've been in for the last 50 years.
The large building, that was your warehouse and distribution?
Manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution, yes, sir.
When you had product brought in, was that mostly by rail or by truck?
It was a mix. We do have a dedicated rail spur that you'll see there that goes up to the back of the building. That will remain in place. That's a CSX line. The first probably 4 or 5 buildings were dedicated to manufacturing. The vast majority of the manufacturing in those buildings was done directly off of the rail spur. I would say probably towards the latter part of our existence, you know, in the site was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% was brought by rail, and the rest was bought by truck. We also have somewhere in the neighborhood of, I believe it's 50 truck bays with distribution going out. We were averaging, I think, at our peak of the site, some in the neighborhood of 20 or 30 trucks that were going out daily. So it's a very, and never really had a problem from a traffic standpoint. As everybody knows, there's no light there at Radiator and Old Monroe. Haven't done any formal traffic studies, but again, haven't had a problem in the last 40 or 50 years.
Do you see that changing, increasing,
The traffic or?
the tractor-trailer usage?
You know, that's, it's hard to say, frankly. We're not sure. I think it's very probable that we would have some distributors in there, and some distributors are, if they're a logistics company, they're very active. Others are not quite so much. It's really hard to know. But I think I don't know what the peak of Radiator Specialty was as far as employee count and trucks. But I don't get the sense that we're going to have that same peak as new owners. Now, I certainly can't guarantee that, but that's just my sense.
Just to give a rough sense, again, we're a fairly large company, chemical company, 84 different countries around the world we sell to. Again, that 20 or 30 trucks represents significant volume moving in and out of a facility like this. So not to, as Pat said, it's possible that a distributor would be able to come in and max that number out, but I can't imagine it's going to be much higher than that.
My understanding was there was going to be some cleanup as well as far as the tanks being removed and.
Yeah, all of the tanks that you see there have already started being sold off. We'll have a contractor that comes in and will completely clean up the site, both outside and in. It is not our intention, and I've discussed this with Pat, it is not our intention to continue to have chemical manufacturing or distribution on site. So that is one of the things, because of some of the environmental permits that everybody's aware of on site. That is something that, you know, we're gonna restrict use for that. But aside from that, we want to be able to have the maximum amount of flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So up in the upper right-hand corner, that's part of the deal, right, or the sale?
Well, it's basically what you see there in that picture, and then about 20 acres kind of to the right.
To the right, okay.
Yeah. Not the land between the buildings and Old Monroe Road.
Right, but towards the spur.
Towards the spur.
Right.
Yeah.
And currently all undeveloped. Parking lot partially, but then mostly undeveloped.
I'm good.
Okay. Patrick, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
Welcome to Indian Trail.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're excited to be here. We're looking forward to it. It's going to take us a few months to actually close on the property, just because we have to work through some regulations, environmental, just steps we have to take. But besides that, we'll be here. So we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll call for a 14-minute recess to 6:30, unless anybody has anything else prior to the meeting?
No.
Okay. All right. Council? This time, I'd like to call the Indian Trail Town Council meeting for Tuesday, September 11th, 2018 to order. This time, if you have a cell phone, please place it on silent. If you have to take a call, please step outside. At this time, also, if you would, please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. Captain Coble, would you do us the honor today of leading the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to
If everyone will please remain standing for a moment of silence. As everyone knows, it is September 11th. Please keep this day in your prayers and keep those in the line of Hurricane Florence in your prayers also. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, is there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem Cone, there's an addition?
No.
Okay,
They're
no
not.
addition? Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
If there's no additions or deletions, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. McIntyre's made a motion to approve. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. This time, that moves us to presentation for new employee recognition. Patrick, I'll yield the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We would like to introduce our full-time employee with Parks and Rec. De Vegas goes by the name of DC. He'll be working with Katie on programs and many other events and activities that we have in Parks and Rec. Pleased to have him on board.
Welcome. He's an ex-basketball player, too. He told me Tony played somewhere in where'd you play? Wingate. That's right. I knew that. Oh, I was going to say Wingate. Oh, God, I wish I would have said it, too.
Kathy, do you have a copy of the proclamation?
Don't worry, Councilman Cone thinks he's probably going to beat you in basketball too. Wait for it. Give it 2 weeks and then he's going to tell you, right?
Okay. Welcome. Our next presentation is for new business. If you would, can you pronounce it again? Kaizoku Japanese cuisine. If you would come up and introduce yourselves. Okay. Who's going to do you are going to do the talking. We're going to put you on the spot. That's okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us, everyone.
If you could step to the microphone.
Sure. Hopefully I'm tall enough. Thank you for having us, everyone. We would like to invite everybody and your family and friends to come see us. We are actually located at the strip where the Sun Valley Cinema is. Our menu basically is Japanese cuisine, so we want to focus on the poke bowls. That's almost like sushi in a bowl. You can choose your protein from salmon to shrimp to tuna, whatever else you can think of. And then you can choose toppings, among other things. But we have regular Japanese food as well, which is from hibachi to teriyaki to anything else. Yeah, sushi rolls, we have those as well. So please come see us, and we'll be more than happy to see you there, guys. Thank you for having us today.
Welcome.
If you'd come up. If you'd come up here for one moment, we have a token of appreciation. Now you come up. On behalf of the town of Indian Trail, so welcome to Indian Trail. We wish you many years of success.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next is Gigi's Kitchen. Council, they closed a half an hour early to come in for this.
Well, thank you for having us here today. I don't know if that's going to go up or not, but I think I'll leave it like that. I just want to introduce my family. It's my wife Cheryl and Bobby, my son, our son. I used to teach class. I used to teach college class, and I was a historian. Before I did this, that'd be a story for another day, but I always like to tell a story being a historian. So I always like to let people know something that they would never have known about us otherwise. And yes, we have a 10-year-old son. That would be one. that people don't usually figure out. Another one is that I actually left a dean's position at a college to open up a restaurant, which people from Wingate find especially funny because they come over and see us used to come up when we had a restaurant in Monroe, Franklin Court Grill. They'd come over and sit and they just say, that's the guy who used to be a dean and now he's doing this, right? So they always used to ask me, I don't know, at least once a week, why did you do that? So I said, well, manage a couple hundred people with PhDs is probably not as much fun as it sounds. So I try to think of a couple of things that we would like you to know about us. One of our sort of mottos is keeping in mind the timeless wisdom of previous generations. So being a historian, I used to teach a class where I had students come in and they used to bring in like the food that was most significant to their family. And that's kind of what our restaurant's about, right? So they come in and they tell why it was important and, what was a big deal about it culturally and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, we're presenting some of the things for our family, but also historically what was important and like for our Gigi's, our great-grandparents, our great-grandmothers. That's where the Gigi's come from. So from the 1930s and 1940s, that kind of thing. So occasionally we'll even have some music, although, it's getting to be a little bit less and less from the 30s and 40s, but we usually have something in there. So we have things like stuffed peppers, and it's all made from scratch, it's all scratch made and fresh. We'll have, hot turkey and meat's all made from, cooked from its raw state. And so we try and do all those kind of things, and we also invite others to share with us their recipes and things that we do our best to kind of, mimic, I guess you could say. So that's one thing we want to, and then we also, as we did at Franklin Court Grill, we don't have any freezers and we don't have microwaves, so we don't, it's all fresh. We try not to use those kind of things, and we almost went with no cans, but I have to get tomatoes every so often. So other than that, we're good with no cans too. So again, fresh, scratch made. We're pretty well known, or at least we were at Franklin Court Grill, especially for our soups and sauces, and they're all made from scratch, and they're people seem to like them. That's kind of our thing. So we have we do all those kinds of things, sandwiches, we're open lunch and dinner. And I guess lastly, the last thing I'd like you to know about is that we hire young adults with intellectual disabilities. Besides the three of us, all of our employees are autistic or Downs or something. So we try, and there are, from Indian Trail and from surrounding communities, we do hire people. And actually, it really has, we kind of wanted to do this for a while. And it actually, brings a real joy to all of us. So I appreciate you having us here, and love to see you all. Yes, ma'am.
Where are you located?
Right down, it's in the shops. It used to be the Cabin Cafe, I think, down in the shops right in front of Lowe's there.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so we're front and center looking at the war zone out there. Everybody's, they're not throwing anything at us at least, but it's, that's
Do you have a website,
I'm sorry?
sir? Do you have a website?
We do. It's Cheryl, your GG's.
Yeah, it's being developed right now. Facebook is our major social
Yeah.
media at the moment. The website is being developed. It's up. It's not, everything's not on it.
And what are your hours?
11, Tuesday through Saturday right now, 11 to 2:30, and then 4 to 7 or 8, depending on the day. We're looking to open up for breakfast relatively soon as well. It's just us, so and again, the people that we employ need a lot of attention and training, and so we may get to 6 days, but we're probably not going to get to 7 at some point, to be honest with you. Yeah. Any
Did
other
you want to
questions?
distribute?
Yes,
Did you
sir.
bring any cards or,
I brought you some menus.
oh, that's great. This is free advertisement.
Thank you.
I don't know if I got enough, but
Thank you.
we'll try and make sure you get one.
Please.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, I don't have one for me.
That's
We'll
okay.
we'll let them, I'll let the mayor get mine.
The mayor has token of our appreciation. Welcome to Indian Trail. Wishing you many blessings, many years of success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to Indian Trail. Our next presentation is a proclamation for Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designated September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Michael L. Alvarez, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Indian Trail, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2018 as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Indian Trail be affixed this 11th day of September in the year of our Lord 2018. Duly adopted the 11th day of September 2018. That brings us to public comments. There was no one that signed up for public comments, so I will close the public comments period. Ask council if they had any feedback for anything. No, so we will move on to Captain Coble. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
I don't have a thing. But I'm here for any questions. Patrick tells me it may rain this weekend, so I would suggest getting an umbrella. But in all seriousness, we've been working already for the past couple of days. I've been communicating with Patrick and some of the town staff and our local fire chiefs, and we have a meeting in the morning. And we'll be dragging Mike down there kicking and screaming to a local emergency management planning meeting. And then we'll be back up here tomorrow afternoon, hopefully with a little bit more information. And somebody's going to guess on when when and where we're going to get any kind of impact, if anything. But in the meantime, we just it's a good time for us to get out our stuff and make sure generators are working and running and making sure all the equipment's out. And we periodically try to do that once a quarter anyway, but it's a good time to get it on back out this week. So we've been moving some stuff around and getting some equipment staged and ready and talking with Public Works about what their possible roles might be. And so the only thing I can put out there is it's also a good time for everybody at home to be doing the same thing. So if you're watching this, make sure you got a little bit of water, make sure you got some food stored. And if you got a generator, crank it up and let it run for a little bit, get a little bit of gas. But water's getting gone. Some of our local stores, Walmart was out last night, and I'm sure they'll get some more in and it'll get going again. And I'm sure gas may do the same thing, especially if we start losing power. But just so it's out there and available, but go ahead and get a little bit now and don't wait till the last minute. And you don't want it to be raining and water rising somewhere. But I lived through Hugo here in Union County 29 years ago, so we certainly don't want that again. But I think between what you've got working for you up here and then throughout the county, I think we're better prepared now than we were 29 years ago. Obviously, at least I like to think we're better prepared. But at the same time, I think the communication between all your department heads and everything, I think we'll make it through there. So anybody got any questions about, yes, Shirley, come pick Ken up because Shirley's going to drive him crazy if they lose power.
You're right. What about the gasoline? What's the situation on that?
So currently right now gasoline is available, but there have been some reports of some stores running low, but there again, those are usually self-induced problems by us, the public, wanting to freak out and go fill up everything. My wife's at home right now filling up all our vehicles as I say this. But, you know, that's her. You know, I'm like, whatever, we'll get some fuel later. But, you know, we're telling everybody be prepared and go get fuel, but then everybody's doing that, and then that's going to be a shortage. And, you know, honestly, they'll catch back up with that on deliveries, but those are self-induced right now. We've not seen anything critical as far as a shortage of fuel or water from the standpoint that they can't get it here, you know, like you might see in the aftermath of an event like this. So hopefully some of the stores in this region are planning, you know, the big box stores hopefully are shipping generators and things like that they know are going to be needed, you know, and supplies like that they know are going to be needed, you know, usually get shipped out to those regions. So, but like I say, right now we're mainly just waiting on a meeting tomorrow morning. We'll get a better updated forecast for what they think it's going to do for that day, and at least we can all start putting together our plans. But in the meantime, we've got our backbone infrastructure that we've started trying to make sure everything's good and going with. So. Don't park your car in the low part of your yard is my other advice for tonight.
Yeah, just to let everybody know, in case you do run out of power or whatever, Chase has a generator at his house. And I'll
It's $89.95 a night for room rental. But seriously, we've you know, if there's sheltering that has to be set up right now from the county standpoint, they're looking at that we might quite possibly have to put up sheltering for other people, you know, coming from coastal counties. And, you know, quite possibly we could have to do that if we have a huge impact, you know, hoping we don't see a huge impact like that. But, you know, knock on wood, we've not had a very saturated past month. So, you know, tree roots and things like that aren't too saturated in this area, in this region right now. But, you know, we can sustain a little bit of wind, but you go getting a sustained 80 or 90 mile an hour wind gust, you know, if that thing will stay on the side of us that they say we're going to stay on, then we'll be okay. But if we get on the back side of it, then it's not going to be good. So, but I'm sure Patrick will be communicating to you guys any plans or anything that's evolving coming up from that. And then I know he's got some things in place for, you know, if we do have an impact from it, there will obviously be some financial stuff that he'll be doing on his end to make sure that you get some reimbursements for that. But from our end right now, we're just, like I say, we've got things in place already, equipment, things like that. It's just a good time to get it all out, make sure everything's running good and running right, so whenever you need it, you need it. So, yes, ma'am.
You told me 911 still works, and that's what you need to call if you have
That's
a
right.
problem.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Shirley, because too often people don't want to call 911. If you wind up with a problem or something during this weekend's event, call 911. That's the best way to get anybody dispatched, whether it be law enforcement or if you need DOT dispatched or if you need Town Public Works dispatched. Through the 911 center is the best way to get help from anybody. So a tree down across the road in front of your house, a tree down across your house. You know, those are, if we have to, we're going to come out and check those because we want to make sure structures are able to be, you know, occupied by people. And so, yeah, call. And trees down across roads, that's what we've got us in Public Works and the fire department for. We're going to try to keep the roadways clear, and we just have to cross our fingers that we don't lose a lot of power line infrastructure. Just keep in mind that, you know, have your basic core essentials, but don't rely upon that you're going to have, you know, internet, or don't rely upon that you're going to have cell phone coverage, because those two could be just as easily taken out as power grid can be. So you could lose internet. We lost internet in this region whenever a dump truck hit the one little line out on 74 back on the bypass construction a few months ago. Y'all remember the truck that was raised up to that one line out, and it took out internet all the way to Wadesboro. So, you know, that's, you could lose internet. So don't just rely upon, well, hey, I've got my laptop and I'll get on the Wi-Fi or something. That might not be the case. So if you got an emergency radio, you know, make sure that thing's working, get you some batteries and stuff like that. But with all seriousness, we joked with Shirley earlier about being at home without power and stuff, but check on your neighbors. You know, hopefully you know your neighbors, but, you know, we encourage everybody, if you know somebody in your community that is, you know, medically bound, then if they don't have any family in this area, step up and be their family in this area and go out and reach out to them, make sure that they're okay, and go check in with them, you know, prior to and afterwards to make sure that they've got what they need. The biggest issue that I saw back in 2001, I think it was, when we got hit with such a snowstorm, you know, I worked that for 7 days in a row without going home, and the biggest problem that we faced was trying to help EMS get out to places to help people that were on oxygen and weren't prepared for the impact of that snowstorm. And, they were either on oxygen or they needed, they needed power for medical purposes. And, trying to get out there was a struggle. And so, that was a shock. We didn't know that we were going to get hit with that much snow. So I'm telling you right now, we're liable to get hit with a hurricane. So go ahead and prepare for that. And if you got family that needs to come into your place for a day or two, just so that you can make sure that they got some power or something for their medical equipment, then do so. So I also wanted to thank everybody that showed up a little bit ago at our building and didn't get stuck in traffic anywhere.
Some of us were stuck.
We appreciate it.
No, I did want to say, anybody that didn't get a chance to get over there, I know David's been over a couple of weeks ago and seen it in progress, but with Marcus or Mayor, any of you guys that want to come by there, take a stroll through that building, we're pretty proud of it.
Are there snacks when we come through?
Do what now?
Are there snacks when we come through?
We may not have any chicken left, Marcus. We'll have to check.
I missed my chance, right?
We'll also give tours of the jail. Anybody wants to go down there, but no, in all seriousness, we're proud of it. I don't know if Jody's still standing back there behind me or not, but I bragged on him a little while ago. But Jody was here the other day. I stopped in talking to Patrick on Saturday, and while we were in Patrick's office, we look outside and here's Jody doing traffic stops out here, stopping cars that are speeding through while they've got the event going on at Carolina Courts. Do you know that a little while later I wound up over there moving and painting and doing the punch list and working on it, and he's over there doing that too. And I'll be honest with you, I came in Monday morning and he had stayed so late over the weekend working on his own time that it probably put the biggest smile on my face that I've had at work in over a year, because I walked in with all the things on my mind of what had to be done this week, and you walk in and it's already done. And it's like looking around saying, my gosh, so I'd have probably gave him a big old hug if he'd have been here on Monday, but Jody has really done a number on that building, and Shirley has seen that building from years ago and has seen 2 transformations of it, and we're pretty proud of it. So anybody that gets a chance, stop by there and we'll show you around. So thank you guys. If y'all need anything over the course of the weekend, call Patrick. No, in all seriousness, y'all, call me or shoot me a text or anything, and we'll do what we can for you, just like we will for anybody else. But I encourage everybody, call 911 if you need something. The fire department personnel are on standby and ready to go. All of our people are pretty much been told you're allowed to be working all weekend long and into the next week. So that's what we come to work for, to help people. So we're here. Call us. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
Mayor,
Yes.
just
What?
so that I can say I've read it, there is one typo
Yes.
In the minutes?
in the minutes. When you look at page 7, the second to the last regarding the $5.1 million multi-use trial, it's trail, right? It's a multi-use trail. Yes.
Okay, trail, okay, got it.
That would be no conflict.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Easy
Michael.
correction. Can we make a motion to approve pending correction?
Make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Head makes that motion. All in favor? That would be unanimous. There are no public hearings. That brings us to old business. A, PIR process updates. Mr. Sadek, will you or Mr. Parks be handling this?
I'll yield to Mr. Parks, sir.
Mr. Parks, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's just a real quick update on where we are currently with PIRs. We currently have 4 PIRs that are in process. Typically, we don't have that many all at once. 2 of those I expect will be completed tomorrow. One of the issues we ran into this month is that we did receive 3 from one individual, and all those went to the junk folder. In our email, we have a pretty tight malware security process on our email to make sure that nothing gets through that shouldn't get through. And that's something that's always evolving. If you look at what happened last year with Mecklenburg County Health Department, and even at a national level, emails are a straight way through to our servers. So we try to be very careful with that. We have seen some possible attacks in the last year on our email process as well. So those went to our junk folder, but we have found them. We are waiting on a clarification from the individual that submitted them before we can move forward on them any further. But as soon as I get that question answered, we should have all 4 done, I would really hope, by the end of the week. And then we will have no open PIRs. Any questions?
Are those large in terms of the request, the amount of information being requested?
It is a large amount of data, but we have a process that should allow us to turn it over fairly quickly.
All right.
We've tried to streamline some of our processes from things we've seen in the past to be able to get that information out quicker to people when they request it.
And are those 4 requests from the same individual or different?
We had 3 from the same individual. One of them we completed today. The other 2 we're just waiting for an answer for. Those other 2 are planning related for documents that we'll be able to provide tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Patrick?
Michael, can you elaborate a little bit about the type of email system or server that this individual is using, why it's causing the stuff to go to junk mail?
Sure. This individual has used an email service provider called MailFence. It's a provider that typically used for some more security on your end when you send emails out. And because it is more of a non-traditional email provider, you know, when I speak of email providers, Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, this is more of a non-traditional one that our junk folder flagged as something that it's not used to seeing. And so that's why it went to junk. It's an extra level of security for us to make sure that we don't click on the wrong link, because all you have to do is click on one link, and that can provide access to everything that we have on our server.
Thank you. There's no further questions. We'll move on to the next item. Okay. The UDO scope schedule update. Mr. Sadek, I
I'll
think
take
that's yours.
this one, sir, since Rox is at a conference this week. It's an update. I just want to let council and the mayor to know that we're moving forward with that. They're almost about to give us a draft, final draft. But us looking at it, and I chatted a little bit with our attorneys, Kevin in particular. Kevin and Karen, they take care of 5 municipalities in the region. The company that's doing the UDO, it's an engineering firms. They have experience with putting documents like the UDO. But I felt that since Kevin and Karen, they work with us and they go over a lot of planning items, it would be advantageous to get them on board. So I've assigned Kevin and Karen a small task to go in there and take a look at the comments that have been generated and look at the old UDO and come up with some recommendations, and they did. And I gave them the go-ahead to move forward with those recommendations, because what they do simply, they simplify the process. They give us more accurate tables so we don't have to run into any issues like the company that came in. So it's all good. It's all for the best. It'll reduce that document. And then we get the advantage of the consultant and our attorneys together, and we will end up with a better product. And talking to Kevin and Karen, what we're trying to do is trying to come up with a product that will stop developers and business people coming into Indian Trail and say that it's difficult to work with Indian Trail. So that's the intent. So we're all teaming up on that, and Rox and Kevin and Stewart Engineering working very closely. I think we're still on schedule. A couple items there will not be in the UDO as recommended by Kevin. One of them will be the SUPs, the special use permits. Simply the way it was explained to me, that they're more into taking risk and ending up legal and attorneys and all that. So if there is no need for that, he's trying to reduce that as much as possible. And I think the Board of Adjustment probably will have a smaller role in that, but I turn it to Karen for any comments that you might have. But after all, I think that product that we're going to get, all of us teaming up on that, it'll be 10 times much better than the one we have.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. Kevin is taking the lead on sort of the oversight review, and kind of the goal was to do a big picture based on Patrick and Rox's concerns, which were simplifying the process, clarifying the process, and so everybody knows when you walk into planning what's going to happen next. Having it, and I think that the plan is to for Kevin and Rox to come and speak to y'all about the global changes and the global goals to make this process much cleaner, easier, and less risky to the town. And what, like Patrick mentioned, one of the riskiest aspects of planning is the SUP process, the quasi-judicial process, and so we're trying to get rid of that and replace it with either a by right process, which would be an administrative process, or a conditional zoning process, which would come to you all for the board for a legislative decision to be made. So hopefully, this is going to be easier, cleaner, and clearer to everybody, from the council down to the planning department, down to developer. And so when you come in, you know what you're going to get, and you know how to get there. Yes, sir.
When do you anticipate Kevin and Rox speaking with council regarding these changes?
Shortly. Patrick, do you have a date yet?
Yeah, we do have 2 sessions that Rox and Kevin, and possibly in one session, Stewart Engineering will join too. And they go before council for about a couple of hours each session. So we want to keep you on board as we progress with the final document. And I would say, let's shoot for December. If we give it until December, we have plenty time. I think his original date was November, but let's shoot for December and give everybody time to kind of absorb the new stuff. And but again, we're going to be coming before council twice.
And then it'll be made available to the public for comment as well? And when do you anticipate the UDO actually being enacted, the revised UDO?
New Year,
First.
first of New Year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Karen, the new way of doing it, the people will still have to be sworn in?
No.
No.
No, there won't be. Quasi judicial is, there's 3 ways to have a zoning or a development process for a person to go through a development process in a town. It is judicial, administrative, or legislative. And what we're going to do is get rid of the judicial process, and that way it's more of a cooperative. It's either you have the right to do this with the conditions assigned to the town, or it is a give and take public process between the council and the developer. And that way, what we've found, the quasi-judicial process, there's a lot of room for error in that, because it's policy decisions made by an unelected board, which is what the Zoning Board of Adjustment is. The legislative process is a much more open conversation where everybody can talk to each other through the whole process. One of the reasons we started the pre-development meeting was an early no. It doesn't cost the town anything. It doesn't cost the developer anything. That's a great way to do business. And then as you do the legislative conditional zoning process that will come before the board, it's a cooperative. Everyone knows what's happening through the whole process, and it's just a much more effective and efficient way to get things done for the town. And on the other side of that is the administrative process, where you've got the right to build something in the right space. The town's made that determination as a policy, and so there's no reason to go through the rigmarole when you can just meet the conditions that are in the UDO and build what you are allowed to build based on where your land's located.
I'll be glad to see that. I'll tell you why the public, when they come up to be sworn in, they're scared to death that they're going to say or do something wrong. They have no idea what's happening, and
Right.
it is a requirement that this occur, so.
That's right. And so we will be eliminating those quasi-judicial process from the town's system.
Any other questions? That brings us to new business. Item A, proposed developments. Mr. Sadik? Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. The first item, Mr. Mayor and Council, kind of all these, the 4 items, they kind of overlap each other, so bear with me. I just tried to separate them as much as I can, but somehow they overlap and they are development related. This first piece, this parcel that we're looking at is owned by the Haney family. It's off of Old Monroe Road. It have access to Publix parking lot. It's 70 acres, zone residential, and the Haney family and their developers came before the town approximately 5 times. And somehow it wasn't successful to get them going with their development. But they have different developments, about 4 or 5 concepts. Until Gary and I and Rox, we met with them one more time, and what we're doing, what they're looking to put out there right now, they're looking to put sort of combination single family and townhomes. It's a 70 acres. It will have a big impact on that area right there, and we will see with other slides that there are other significant developments in the same area. The intent of me sharing this with council is that if this gets going, we'll be looking approximately about 6 big development, including the radiator occurring at the same area. But we're very fortunate that Old Monroe Road is proposed to be widened. So that's a blessing right there. But one thing unique about this property that they do not have direct access neither to Monroe Road nor to Wesley Chapel. The only access they have right now, that stub out that you see at the bottom right hand, bottom left hand, that takes you into the public's parking lot. Simply, we met with them and we told them townhomes, condominiums are okay, single family is okay. We didn't encourage apartments, and I don't think they'll be coming back with any apartments. And we did, make it clear that if they come in before council, try to get a traffic impact study done, they will be using Kimley Horn for that study, and that will give us an idea about how the traffic is going to behave from now until we get Monroe Road widening by 2023. So it's just an information item that I wanted to share with you. This parcel has been out there for a long time, and the Haney family would like to move forward with it. The market is good right now, so they really would like to submit a concept, and they'll be coming before council to share that with council and the mayor.
Any questions for Patrick?
It's
That's it.
70 acres, very large parcel that will have some impact on that intersection and traffic.
Yeah, I do have one. It's outlined in red, this 70 acres.
Yes, sir.
So there's no connectivity to Hayes Road?
No, as we see, no, because those properties, they're owned by different property owners. But they did say that they might come back and purchase a piece of a property to give them access to Old Monroe Road.
So the only access would be through the Publix.
Through the Publix, and through the Publix that will put them close to the intersection on a 4-lane roadway, which is sometimes it's not favorable by traffic people or professionals. But that's why we said you need to come back with a TIA. We want to encourage that development, but at the same time, we need to make sure, even with the 4-lane roadway, we would like to see a TIA. So they'll be coming in with a TIA that will be phased, sort of like based on the construction schedule that they're proposing.
Towards the back there, Patrick, is that the railroad tracks I'm seeing there?
That is correct.
All right.
Any other questions?
It's too early.
Okay. Is that all, Patrick, for that one?
Okay, thanks, sir.
Okay, that brings us to item B, Town Strategic Planning Tool.
Okay. I would like to kind of mention one of our staff that worked very, very hard on this one, Dalton. And Dalton is using our GIS software to do that. Simply what we're trying to do is something similar to what you see when you open Google and you go in there and sometimes you see a name of a restaurant or something like that. But this software came out in 1993, and I was fortunate to be able to work with it. Simply what we're trying to do right here is trying to put every new development, every old development, type of places. If you look at the index right there or the legend on the side, from churches to parking lots to shopping centers to auto repair, etc. And the reason why we're trying to do that is when we get this project completed, when developers come in or new businesses come into town, then we could evaluate how many car dealerships we have on Independence. Do we need one on Independence? if I look at, and I know few council members, they live in Bonterra. I don't think there is there like a grocery store right there, like Harris Street but so we're missing that from that side of town. They're all on this side of town. So we had a developer proposing one next to the bypass, and then, I think, David, you're aware, Mrs. Russian, I think she proposed one right there at one of the exit, and we really encouraged that. So the intent of this software is we could open it up, have different coverages. If you want to open it up and just say, give me all the gas stations in town, so that way it'll give us the tools so we could go ahead and work with developer and encourage him to put the right uses in the right place. And so the next step is this is looking at a close-up. And what you see in black is the new bypass, and what you see in red, all the transportation improvements that we have ongoing right now and the future one. But you could see the congestion on Independence Boulevard. But tools like that, they were created really to be used by planning and engineering to really decide and work with the developer on what would be the best product and the best location. So Dalton, thank you very much. A lot of hard work, and hopefully you'll get this project maybe in about a month or so we could go ahead and start using it. Any questions for me or Dalton?
Good stuff, Patrick. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
That brings us to C, Economic Development, Town Properties. Mr. Evans? Mr. Sadek?
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Council. Mr. Mayor. Patrick, you want to start off with this?
Okay. Well, the slides that we're trying to show you are properties that the town own, and a lot of developers, well, not a lot of developers, few developers are interested into coming in and purchase the parcels and put some kind of a use on them. This property right here, I shared it with council not too long ago. It's a concept I put out there just to kind of give some guidance. This property, it's rezoned for, trying to remember what, we rezoned it to match the use that we have in our downtown master plan. So it will be high density, like retail at the bottom, office on top, or maybe residential on top. We do have right now 2 developers interested in it. They also agreed to pay us the market price for that, and then on top of that, they're willing to remove the 3 buildings. So I've talked to Karen this afternoon, and she told me to go ahead and ask him to submit an offer in writing. And what's nice about getting this parcel completed is because of the 47 acres across the street, that will allow us to work with Union County as they're upgrading their water lines, so water could be provided to both of them, and then that will allow us to come back with our complete street project and start from the trail going the other way. So things are working out pretty good, and the 2 developers that they're interested in this property right here, they ask about available parking. You could get enough parking right there, but not for a large number of 3-story buildings. So we might be working with them to provide some overflow parking across the street as we end up with the 150 parking spaces, Adam, something like that. Chase said he will not have any, few cars in the back, not a lot of usage up front. But in a way, the properties are there, and they're there to be used by the park and also by any development downtown that they might need to use that parking. And Jason could attest to that. When we have concerts out there, before we created the parking, they were parking on Indian Trail parking lots. But after we created the parking, they start parking in these parking spaces. So it's working. That's the lesson learned, that it's working. So just to let council know, we'll come back before council, and I talk to Karen if those developers are interested in using some of that overflow parking. But this is one property right now that we have two interested developers that would like to start something out there, and that will match our master plan. And that will allow us to go ahead and get going with our complete street project, because we need to go ahead and start spending some money, so that way CRTPO won't have any issues while we're delaying the project. The other item too is we've communicated with these developers that we're tying in Old Town Hall and Uptown with the trail that Adam is working on right now. Very unique trail that brings us back to New Town Hall. And we're working with Chase on having all the security cameras right there. He already got his. We have ours on our side. So it's a well-coordinated effort, and we just need to work with the developers. But definitely when they have a concept similar to the one we put out there, we will ask them to come back before council and get a final decision on them.
Any questions?
This is a larger view of the downtown projects. As you all know, they're going to be starting on, I've talked to the developer today. He said, he kind of told me he's starting this week, but because of the hurricane, he's going to hold construction. I said, yes, that's correct. So they're going to start with the apartment, and they still have to come back before the town to apply for the commercial park, for approval on the commercial park. But that kind of gives you an idea how, there is some momentum uptown, and we're very excited about it. And definitely, as we talk to Typar and that developer, that they will be looking at the connection to South Fork. And this shows all the properties, including what we have right here around this complex right here. The top parcel, that triangular piece that you see on top, the plans have been submitted to engineering for review and modification. Todd is working on that right now. And as soon as we work out the traffic issue, it will be, I think it's a matter of just exchanging comments, and if everything is okay, then we'll end up with approval. And that developer came in before council about a couple months ago. The larger piece, the two pieces together, that's the Lemon property. I've communicated today with Karen. I think they would like to, their attorney would like to talk to Karen's attorney just about the process. There isn't any legal issue or anything like that. But he called me after I spoke to Karen, and he said that they are talking to someone today that could be developing a hotel. So they are very interested in the parcel, and we kind of Gary and I made it clear that council would like to see a hotel on Independence, and they're trying their best to come up with one.
Correct.
And you want me to continue, Gary? You want me to hand it to you? Okay. We do have the parcel around New Town Hall right now, right here, and the top parcel, we had a developer interested in that one. Actually, two of them. One, it was interested into putting a restaurant right there, maybe two-story building, and we had another developer that's interested in putting a small conference center, but we're still waiting on both of them. We do have, I'm showing right here, the two parcels that we own, and we have the trail in them right now. One parcel we shared with council where the pickleball with the restaurants and the bar, they were interested in that, and I think they're still looking for finance on this one, Gary, right?
Yes, I actually shared that with one of the other developers,
Okay.
and trying to connect those two together to see if they can work something out to incorporate the development that they want to propose.
All right. And I'd like to mention that we're not trying to get rid of our park land. It's just I looked at the park master plan, and one of the items, correct me if I'm mistaken, Jason, was trails. It's very important items. So we are gonna, if we decide to allow any of these developers to come in and put something sport facility related to the compound, we definitely will be looking into replacing those trails, but they'll be more straight type of long longitudinal rather than the one that we have right there in circles. But we're not pushing it, but we're seeing some interest from the developers. So that first piece on the right is, like I said, the pickleball. The second piece on the left, I've talked recently to a developer, and he's looking into maybe bringing a racquetball facility. So if you look at what we have right now, we have footballs, we have tennis, we have volleyballs, we have Carolina courts, the swimming pool is coming, and then if we end up having with the pickleball and the racquetball, we'll end up having sort of like a big sport complex. Again, we will not move forward with any of these. If anything clicks, we'll bring it back before council and ask those developers to come in and submit, to give council information about the projects, and it's up to council whether to be approved or not. But again, we're not pushing selling the park properties. These properties, they're valued probably, if we compare them to the one uptown, one of them is about $400,000, the other one probably about $500,000. So if we have a developer that comes in to purchase those properties and pay us whatever they cost, and they put a sport facility or something related to parks, and we could take that money and pay it for bonds, and we could take some money also and we could use it for trails or other recommendation for, by the consultants that doing the park master plan, because he's working on the entire city. It's not only Crooked Creek or this place. So Gary and I were kind of focusing on what's around the parks, but the consultant be bringing the final recommendation on any parks that we might have, or any trail, or any recommendation throughout the town. Gary, I think I covered the drawings.
That's pretty
so
much it. And the reason I turned it over to Patrick, because being that these are town properties, I don't know the right things that I can say as a consultant, so I felt more comfortable with Patrick handling this.
You want to, okay. Any questions from Mr. Mayor or council?
Yeah, just a clarification on these properties. The 2.58 acres, that's the pickleball proposed,
Right.
perhaps? And where was the racquetball? Was that the 3.4?
Correct.
And then this little .66 triangular shaped property?
The first thing they brought to our attention that if there isn't enough parking, probably they look into making that a parking lot.
And where does Shady Bluff?
Shady Bluff is between the two red lines, right there.
It's right between those two
Michael?
yellow stars.
Is that a state road or a town road?
It's down, and it's very inadequate, and I will come back to council and propose that it needs to be widened.
Yes.
We do have big problem out there, and we're lucky that we haven't got any head-on collisions. So if any of these developments occur right there, we will be back and asking council to allow us to widen this street.
And has there been any interest expressed in the 1.25 and the 1.35 acres?
No, sir, none so far. But we do have two developers. One of them came in and wanted all of these properties they're looking at, but they backed off because of the Lemon property was under contract. But we do have another developer right now. Help me out with the development that they have, William.
Oh, the town of Airsley
Town
in
of
Charlotte, and it's in the Steel Creek area. It's a multi-use community. And they are, again, we met with them 2 weeks ago. They're very, very interested in almost like a continuation of that park area, and even over to the town hall area, that the parcels that are available there, and possibly carrying it up to uptown part of it. And again, it would be all mixed use. It would be commercial, retail, sporting facilities, restaurants, microbreweries,
nice area over
stuff
there,
stuff that we need. And that will also, if something like that does come to this area, It's also going to encourage our hospitality that we desperately need. And it's part of the criteria that Indian Trail does not meet. And that's why we're having such a difficult time bringing a hotel into Indian Trail.
But we kind of, Rox, Gary and I kind of looking at the Republican National Convention too and we're pushing hard as much as we can to get hotels before anything happens, because sometimes they make reservation from 6 months to a year. So we would like to be part of that too.
Any questions? No. That brings us to Town Economic Development Marketing Campaign. Again, Mr. Evans, Mr. Parks.
Okay. So during the short period of time that I've been economic developer, one of the biggest things that I find is the lack of identity that Indian Trail has. A lot of people confuse us with Indian land. But again, it's just a lack of identity that we have a difficult time with. And so I approached Patrick and Mike Parks and myself. We've met with a couple of different marketing agencies. One is Red Moon Marketing. They're based out of Charlotte, and they're probably one of their biggest clients is Jack Daniels out of Tennessee. They do all their regional advertising. Problem with them is that they're, we're dealing with a municipality here. We don't have the money that Jack Daniels does. That plays a big part in what they want to know what kind of budget we have to work with, and before they can even consider giving us a proposal. The second one is called the Agency Marketing Group, and again, they're based out of Charlotte. These guys have dealt with municipalities before. They've dealt with the city of Charlotte. They've done a lot with their parks. They've done their stormwater. They've done campaigns for them. You can see up on your screen there, they have a great piece here. It's a 3-page piece, I believe. And it brings out all the strong points of Charlotte. This is something that we really want to try to devise for Indian Trail. This will help us, again, to bring an identity to our town. Some of the things that we want to include as far as the marketing materials is our Moody rating, which we're very proud of, is AA1. There's only one more step that's better than that, and is it AAA, Jim? And I understand that IBM is the one that has that rating. So we're very close to that, though, so we're very proud of that. We want to show the vicinity map of town's locations and proximity to Charlotte and its major attractions, town attractions, sport facilities, shopping, dining, parks, memorials, and hopefully, we're going to continue to add to that so we can add to this piece and make our town more identifiable. Our low property taxes, available acreage of undeveloped land, reliable town services, a reputable school system, reliable transportation system, and some others. Some goals and objectives: to invite entrepreneurs and new businesses to our town, increase our labor force, create new jobs, increase our tax base, attract professionals and millennials, retirees, reach out to more hospitality businesses, encourage conference and seminar activities, develop a variety of housing communities, achieve desired physical character of the town, and strengthen existing local businesses. So all this stuff that we, as we continue to develop our economic development, all this stuff plays a huge part in it, and we need to get that word out to help identify an Indian Trail. I want to start attending some conferences nationally to try to get some potential business from California, where the taxes are so high that they can't afford to stay in business. But if we can get them to come to the East Coast and specifically in North Carolina, we can save these companies a lot of money, and their employees, as they move here, we can save them a lot of money for the cost of living. And that's just going to help our economy as well. That's about all I have. Patrick, you want to add anything?
Yes, the document, it'll be like a four-fold document. It's very light, not too big, maybe I would say 7 by 8. And like Gary mentioned, we will put a map for Indian Trail that shows the parks, the attractions, the sport facilities. And then we will also show another one that extends a little bit to Charlotte, just to kind of give us some identity with the Charlotte metropolitan area, so people could see how far they are from the airport, UNCC, downtown, etc. So we will have 2 small maps like that. And the funding that we're going to use for that is, if we can, we did have that $50,000 that we were granted for the economic development, so we could use. And we're looking at a document like that. I would say it will not cost more than $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
But I'd like to apologize for Mike. I mentioned Rox's name, but actually Gary and Mike Parks taking the lead on the communication part of it.
Yeah, and really what the conversation is that we have to have now, as Gary mentioned, is what makes Indian Trail special that we are selling to people. You know, if you are a regional business and you're looking at moving to the Charlotte area, we want you to say, look at everything Indian Trail has to offer. That's where I want to be, in the Charlotte region. And so we're looking at what makes us special, what makes us stand out amongst all the towns in the Charlotte region, and then how can we get that message out to people. This brochure we've talked about, possibly we put a lot of them at the airport. And so when new businesses come in, this is one of the first things they see, are creating an advertisement kind of like this that put in trade magazines and different things like that, some targeted marketing that we would use these materials for. Some of these materials would be created by some of these agencies that we're talking with. Some of them we'd create ourselves. So really that's the conversation we're having right now. We're meeting with these groups to see what are some of the things they've seen that other cities and municipalities have done that have been successful. How can we incorporate that to what Indian Trail has that makes it special?
And probably on the Indian Trail map, we will show where the parks are at, the downtown projects, new town hall, Veterans Memorial, sports facility throughout, maybe the striker soccer next to the bypass. So we'll try to put all these dots in there. Nothing fancy, but like Mike said, it gives people that are trying to move to the Charlotte area kind of sense of what Indian Trail has and what can they do in Indian Trail. Any questions?
Any questions?
Mr. Cohen?
I have several. Some of the things that, and this is not a question, some of the things that, before I get into that first, how much do you think it would cost to have a marketing, like you were talking about, a company? Do you have any kind of cost that you want to spend, that you think it might cost?
David, that's a good question. Mike and Gary, they had from the 2 companies that they met with, and they had some marketing material. I mean, you could have a big magazine if you want to, or you could be part of other marketing campaigns that Charlotte doing, as an example. But among all of them, I think we all liked this one because it's so simple. But also we have to keep in mind that Indian Trail cannot offer what Charlotte offer. You know, we don't have the theater, we don't have the museum, we don't have all these attractions. So we could, David, we could go as high as we can, but we thought that a product like that probably is economical and serve the purpose. But I mean, if we see something out there, and what we're going to do before we do anything, we'll get sort of a sample and bring it back to council for your opinion, but I hope I answered your question, David.
No, you
You
didn't.
didn't?
That's okay.
David, they've.
I mean.
No, I meant approximately.
They've broken this out into like a smorgasbord. It's almost like a menu. that you can select different types of advertising. They do everything from websites to brochures, social media. So it's all broken out into different segments, and each thing is obviously priced out separately. But again, you can have a continuing marketing campaign, which of course is going to be expensive. But I mean, it's hard to even to guesstimate something like that. Again, it depends on how extensive you want to get with your marketing.
Okay, well, all right, thank you. Just another question. It sounded like you got a pretty good fix on what a lot of the things of Indian Trail. You read a lot of advantages of what we have. You know, a couple things that I didn't think you had in there, which is fine. I know you're probably going to put them in there. It's like the proximity to 485 and the proximity to Charlotte. The land that we have here, we got a lot of land for things, and then we got the Monroe Parkway, which is great. We have great parks. Those are a lot of the good things, but I guess the whole point that I'm trying to get to here is, have we thought about possibly hiring our own? You know, I know what you're talking about is very expensive to go. You're talking about you can't afford it because of Jack Daniels. You know, they're spending millions of dollars on that. And then I don't know if you watch TV and you see Greenville, South Carolina has a lot of things on now. I mean, Greenville's an up and coming area. It's very nice. It's a pretty place, and they're pushing it hard. You know, this thing right here, this NC League with Hickory. You know, Hickory's pushing itself. See a lot of things about Hickory, and Hickory's just a little bit bigger than Indian Trail. You know, maybe 20,000 more people. I'm not sure. But I'm just thinking, too, is it possible that we would be interested in getting our own marketing? Because it sounds like that we have a pretty good idea of what all our advantages are. And, you know, we'll just add it to Mike Parks and just give him the add it. I'm just kidding, Mike. But, you know, you're a newspaper guy. You know things about marketing, and I'm not serious about giving it to you. But what could we do as the town, and maybe instead of spend, you know, $500,000 or $250,000, because you're going to have to spend that much money, hire somebody that's an extra $50,000 job or $70,000 job and have them do a lot of it themselves.
Well, David, I think we can get a good marketing campaign for less than that. And then, you know, once you hire another person, you're talking benefits and so down the line. But, and I did offer this to Mike as well, but he wasn't crazy about adding that to his resume.
I would say one of the best parts about this process right now is we are seeing content that has been successful for other people that gives us ideas on things that we could create ourselves. This brochure, for instance, that we're looking at here, this is something that we could easily make ourselves, and then the only cost would be printing and mailing, like we do with the town newsletter. We would just get a higher quality print material. One of the things that the agency that we spoke with mentioned, they would create a website for us. That's something we could do ourselves. If you look at our website here, you know, I'm sure you've noticed we have a special homepage just for our Parks and Rec department. If we wanted to, we could create a homepage just like this, just for economic development. Our website also has a tool where we can list available property, both undeveloped property and open retail space. Some of the stuff they discussed with us also included commercials and just coming out and doing photography, things, you know, photography we could do ourselves. So I think in general this is giving us a lot of great ideas, a lot of it that we could do ourselves. And then for the things we can't, one of the things we discussed with them is just ideas of where to put these marketing materials. Place, you know, a database of places they've seen successful when they put some of these advertisements out there. I think that is what we would be using a lot of with one of these agencies. And then if we really wanted something very crisp made like this, if we didn't feel we could do it in-house, you know, something like this, just design fees, less than $2,000
would they
probably.
help us, last question, would they help us make our concept of what we are? I mean, Charlotte's concept, I look at that, I think of a clean, big city, lots of things to do. You know, if you have the Indian Trail, the trail, you know, kind of nice parks, a lot of sports activities, kids, you know, suburb of Charlotte, kind of paint that picture, I guess, you know.
Yeah, they would help us kind of analyzing what are our strengths, what are things that they've seen that other communities such as ours have marketed that has been successful for them. You know, for us, sports tourism, low taxes, available space, right down the road from two airports and major highways. A lot of that we would provide ourselves, but they would come in.
They'd put it together for us.
Yes.
Low taxes, man, that'll be right on the top. I
Yeah.
forgot about that, yeah. Yeah.
Just to give you an example, David, a company could come in here and take pictures from the air. You know, they might charge you $3,000 for something like that. We could buy the drone, and Adam could go out there and, or maybe Jason or anybody, and get the best shot you can, and then you own the piece. So we're trying to we're introducing this system to all of us right now. We're learning from them, but definitely the sky is the limit, David. We have different variety of things that we could, select from. You know, advertisement or marketing is a very big and very broad. So we just, because we're small, not as big as Charlotte, like you said, we just need to figure out exactly what we want to do. But the only thing I'll say is we Definitely come back before council and let them know what we're doing. And Mrs. Howe gave us a document, maybe it's about 10 years ago, that talks about Indian Trail.
Right.
It's like a magazines with restaurants and stuff like that. So we also looked at that one. So we're looking at history. We're going to look at what we have, and we're going to look at what we think we have in the future. And definitely we'll hire somebody to help us put all that stuff
We also
together.
saw some of these marketing materials where these different organizations sold advertisements to help pay for a brochure like this. So there's other things that we could look into if we did want to help fund this campaign.
Around 2006, 7, somewhere in there, we changed our logo. I know Adam would probably remember that, and enhanced what we had and put the different Indian in there. And they worked with, the public came in. It was really the first time everybody got along. I mean, everybody was coming up with great ideas. And they do advertisement and make up brochures like that, too. I have to go back in history here to find the name of the company, but that's why we have the logo that we have now.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, it's I think a good idea. But a couple of questions are that, really regarding the content, and is what are we marketing? Who are we marketing to? And the thing that I liked the most, what I heard, was sharing the costs. I mean, because, honestly, the benefactors are going to be like the Selwyn Property Group, Tyson, Moser. So how do you involve them, since they're going to be direct recipients of, the good things that come to Indian Trail?
I'll tell you, one of the biggest beneficiaries are going to be our taxpayers, because this is going to increase our tax base by bringing these people in as well. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is to try to level out our tax base with bringing in commercial and retail.
And that goes directly to my point of who are we marketing to? Are we marketing to, bringing more people to Indian Trail to enjoy the parks and, populate townhomes and apartments and whatnot? Or are we marketing towards bigger business, small business, identifying those?
I think it's going to be a good combination of both, because it's like an ecosystem almost. I call it the development ecosystem, that they all feed off of each other. So I think we need a good blend of all of that.
Yes, the key to this would be targeted marketing. So different groups that we are targeting is going to get different types of advertisement, whether that be a regional business, if we're looking at bringing in someone like a Target, they would receive different marketing than we would try to provide to local small business entrepreneurs that we were trying to get to open. If they have a location in Charlotte, we're trying to get them to open one in Indian Trail. So we would target that market at different groups, really, and that's the conversation we're having right now. Do we want to go full big picture with this? And we are trying to get some of these national, companies that are looking to move to the Indian Trail area to relocate here. Or do we want to target more some of the people that are already around here to get them to expand? So it would be, we would be getting different pieces to different people.
May I take stab at this question. If we take as an example the downtown area, let's take the Thai Park project. All right, now, we, as a town, we did not contribute any incentive for this big development to come in. Our incentive is on the street. So if we, one of the items that we were going to put in this leaflets or whatever you call it is to show that we're revitalizing downtown. Now, if I'm trying to understand your question. Are you asking to see if some of these developers, as an example, would like to share some of this marketing campaign, the cost of the marketing campaign, or no, Jay?
Well, no, it was mentioned that perhaps we could have someone advertise, and to me, that would be like the Mosers or the Tyson property, the downtown project specifically.
Right. Well, I think what our main focus right now is to do whatever it takes also to help these projects to succeed. You're talking about $200, $300 million projects coming into town, paying taxes. So it's not, to answer your question, all of the above that you mentioned. So we want to try to help the developer to succeed. We want to bring the millennials to town and the retirees. We do have good neighborhoods, single family, multifamily. We want to encourage people to come in to use our sports facilities, use our parks, try our trails. So it's like Mike said, this combination of many different things. So hopefully we could nail it down to exactly what we want to put on that brochure. But it's just so broad to all of us right now. And at the same time, like I said, Indian Trail does not have as much as Charlotte or another city right now. We just have a couple things out there. So we're going to put what we have. But definitely, I mean, I don't think we should, we want the developers to succeed. We want all the food places to succeed and make money from this effort that we're putting together. So again, I know I flunked responding to David's question. I probably flunked this one too.
Well, I think we have three big things going for us. You do have a pro-business council. We do have a very low tax rate, one of the lowest around, and we have available property. And I think those will bring us some mileage for sure. Anyways, just some comments.
I have a few comments actually. Was your Councilman Morse? This is really directed to you. Was your question regarding this as in you really need the developers to participate in this, or do you think that this is a town-led event or purpose? And the reason I'm asking this is that the town is marketing this, and there's going to be beneficiaries that are not the town. That's understandable. That's kind of the way it works. But the thing is, the intent of this is really to broaden our tax base and to have residents kind of come more, residents or new residents, new businesses, new events and so forth come to the town, right? Is that the intent here, to kind of put us on the map, let people know?
Correct.
what in the
And
trail?
in turn, the adage, it improves the quality of life for the residents of Indian Trail.
All right.
All of this.
So the question I'm asking is, do you think that we, and I'm trying to clarify so I understand your question, because I kind of took it to mean that, well, if these guys are not participating, maybe it's not a good idea. But I don't want to assume that. I want to make sure you clarify that. That's why I'm asking.
No, not so much that as perhaps you could dovetail and augment some of the costs and allow them to advertise some of their developments in part of this marketing strategy. You know, if we're going to tout the downtown project, if we're going to promote that, then yes, it benefits the taxpayers, but it also benefits the person who is developing the downtown project. So there may be some shared costs there with this marketing.
But it's not always a zero-sum game. Sometimes it does, the cost, we as the town, meaning us up here and Patrick and his staff, we sometimes have to create the environment so that businesses will want to come in and locate. While we may have some costs that we do bear up front from that standpoint, overall, the benefit from a long-term perspective with the broadening of the tax base is something that we definitely want to keep our eye on, especially, you know, as I think Gary mentioned earlier, we have a, AA1 right now, and it would be good to get the AAA rating. Jim, is that correct? All those things do help, especially in an economic downturn as well, where you have a broadened tax base and therefore you're not relying on one segment of for your tax revenue. So it's just something I just wanted to, but I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you. In just one last question. If you were to get the approval or support from council to go ahead with that, how long do you think that would take, and when do you think would be a good time to kind of launch this?
I'm not sure exactly how long it would take. This is all new to us, and again, this is in the infancy stages, so to speak. But
So how about in the next 2 weeks, you kind of give me an estimate? I don't expect an exact number.
I would
It
certainly
is-
hope that we could have something by the beginning of next year.
Okay. All right. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Head, did you have a comment?
Well, I'm just trying to think all this through. One of the things that when you look, we're becoming very sports-minded here, and I think that plays in a lot of different arenas. I mean, I think that brings a lot of different people. The other thing I think we've got going, and hopefully it comes to fruition, is the downtown project. So, in terms of developers, my initial thought would be, look, we're not against developers, but I don't want to limit it. I don't want their participation as if they're going to get that. We may be wanting to look at something even bigger, something that maybe they can't handle. I don't know. I'm not that interested in having the developers in just yet. I think we need to continue to accent our positives and where we're going. I think this is a great idea. I think we need to, look, half of my time was spent at different locations, Vegas, and doing this type work. And so you got to have something that really attracts. It really is first class. So I think we got to think big, and then figure out how we pay for it. So my suggestion is, think big, think of what we're after. Maybe get some support from some of the council members. Maybe get some support from some of our residents. But I think we need to make this big, and I think we need to figure out the direction that we want to take going forward. But yeah, look, I think this is spot on with what we're all wanting to achieve. I think this is a very, very good first step. But let's make the first step being very positive, is what I'm trying to say. Let's go out, all out,
I agree.
big time. So.
And last comment. I totally agree with you. This is the big sales pitch. I'm sitting here looking at this downtown photo. Is it up? Yeah, okay. And I've been here about 40 years, and I realized, hey, there was like a third of a building here and some short ones, and that was it. But look at it now. And we're still moving on to other things too. And with the owner of the Panthers, Mr. Tedder, I hope I get to meet him one day, because he's from Pittsburgh. And, and he's from an area where I live too. But I mean, when you go in to see somebody, you leave a card so that they can get in touch with you. So they see that card and they put it in their little box. But when you sit there and this is on a counter, and then you start looking, and then you open the page and you look further along there, and there's some good articles, and Indian Trail. Where's Indian Trail? We don't want that downtown like here. We want that to stay there. We want to be the bedroom community. But look at like we were talking about before, the sports events that we can have here. I mean, it's just extraordinary how this has bloomed in the last couple of years. So, I'm finished.
I agree.
Just to give you an idea, I would say we're the only municipality right now that we have $127 million of North Carolina DOT project in the next 5 years. And not including the bypass. This is just correct that. If we add them all together, they're about 127. So that's an item we should brag about because it gives us good access to I-485, like I think David said, the schools downtown, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, you're there. Airport, 28 minutes. So these are the things that we're going to put in that documents, some of that, just to show that our jurisdiction is playing a big role in the metropolitan area. The MLS, the Major League Soccers, they responded back to Gary, so they said they will let us know in October. They give us some info. And we do have a lot of bibliography and historical information about Mr. Tepper, so I would say by the end of maybe next week, that letter will go out and we'll copy council on that. And also we will copy his new CEO, Cheryl, that we talked about that. Yes, ma'am. So, I mean, you said play it big, we won't try to play big. So I just want council to know that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Great. All great
If I just make one other statement too, and I spoke briefly to Patrick about this, and I don't know if I'm be out of line or not, but I would encourage you as council members, where you have access to our legislators, to contact them about having more recognition to Indian Trail. We are the largest community in Union County. We have a population of 40,327 people as of July 1st, 2018. The next closest city is Monroe, which has 35,000. It seems like everything that is in Union County goes to Monroe automatically. If you notice, the transponder store is going on Wellness Drive in Monroe. Why can't that come to Indian Trail? We're the largest community in Union County. I think if we could stress to our politicians that we need more stuff here in Indian Trail because we are the largest community here. We have the largest municipality. That would help us out tremendously, I think.
Good stuff, Gary.
Quick follow-up on that. As we're putting this together, we can also put a flyer that we all can use to take to Raleigh with us, and I'm there.
Yeah, good point.
You're the bus driver.
I don't know what that means.
Bus.
Oh, bus driver.
That brings us to you, Patrick.
Unusual.
Thank you, sir.
You done? Okay, that brings us to council comments. Karen?
Ms. Howe?
Oh, first, okay. This was a good meeting. Isn't it wonderful that we're all getting along? I mean, I'm really happy about this, and I think everybody else is too. Want to thank the employees, different department heads, everybody sitting over there and those that aren't there. We appreciate all you do. And I try to tell you every time I talk to you that what somebody say you forgot to tell me one time. But anyway, I appreciate all that you do. And we're really moving along here, and I'm excited about that. I really am. And that's about it. Thank you.
Mr. Morse?
Well, thanks to everyone for coming tonight. Wanted to thank Captain Coble for the tour this afternoon before we had the early session with the developers. The Blythe property is really, it looks great. It's they've really worked hard over there, and they've got some elbow room finally, and I was amazed at how much stuff they actually packed into the old Indian Trail Bureau. Today is Remembrance Day. It's anniversary of 9/11. It's an important day to our country. I remember, exactly where I was on 9/11. Doubt I'll ever forget. And I also remember how the people in this country pulled together after that event, and we had renewed pride, and we recognized things that we had in common, and unfortunately, I feel like over those last 17 years, we've kind of backslid a little bit, and we're now, once again, kind of paying more attention to our differences and instead of our things that we do have in common. So just want others to think about that a little bit and respect each other and respect each other's opinions, just like we do here on council. And I was glad to really see the Selwyn Properties come in with the radiator specialties on Radiator Road. I'm hopeful that we'll have more manufacturing, warehousing, distribution type businesses that want to either remain in Indian Trail or relocate to Indian Trail. We do have the lowest tax rates around compared to the other municipalities. I think that's that right there in itself is a big reason why companies would like to move here. And I hope y'all please be safe during this weather event we're fixing to have, and everyone have a good night.
Mr. Cohn.
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. See you next time.
Mr. McIntyre.
Gonna take a few minutes. First of all, thank you everybody for coming, but I've been through a few hurricanes before. Unfortunately, I had the chance to go down to the island where I'm from last year after a Category 5 hurricane with winds measuring over 230-something miles per hour in certain parts of the island. My mother lost the roof, and it's still not up yet because it's very hard to find. I guess you want to say the roofers are in very high demand. They are going to get hit on Wednesday night into Thursday with a tropical storm, Isaac. So going to be keeping an eye on that. But for those of us who are here, take extreme precaution. These things are not jokes. A lot of the damage that we may get from our houses will come from wind based on the track. Pay attention to the warnings that are issued. Get water. Water is very essential for life, so ensure that you have enough water. If you're going to get any food, try not to get perishable items, things that you would need in your fridge. Try and get non-perishable things. That way you can kind of sustain yourself for the next few days, depending on how this goes. I hope that it kind of turns just away from the U.S. and goes somewhere else, but that probably doesn't look like it's going to happen. So please exercise caution as you go about and pay attention to the news reports as well. Hopefully everybody's safe and we can all be back here on Monday with very little damage as we continue. Thank you for everybody on council. I appreciate working with you guys. You know that. Patrick, your staff, you and your staff, thank you very much for all that you guys do. And thank you for coming. All right? Thank you.
Mr. Head.
It's all been said. It really has. It's all been said. Thank everybody for coming. I thought this was a very forward-thinking meeting tonight, and I think that the council has shown its support that we're 100% behind this. We want to see it succeed. Again, as Mr. Morris said, I can tell you the time, the minute, where I was. I was not here. My kids were in school. I was in Mobile. So that panic that sets in 9/11 was real. And as Mr. Morris said, I wish we could go. I wish that camaraderie, the spirit of America pulling together as one that we had back after this would continue. So we got to find a way out for that. But again, excellent meeting. Thanks to staff. I think you can see that council is really wanting to move this town forward. So all good. Have a safe trip home. Thank you.
And Mayor Alvarez.
If everyone would just give me a minute. Marcus, my prayers go to Dominica, your family, and for their safety during these storms. This is a traumatic day on this nation, and this morning I was sitting down and I jotted a few words down, if you didn't indulge me for a minute, from things I was reading, both on social media and things I've heard in the classroom. And I hope I put my thoughts down correctly. There are many asking these days why we continue to hold ceremonies and vigils for September 11th, 2001. They argue that all we do is rehash horrible memories and create emotional trauma for many. Although the memories of this unfathomable act of terror do in fact awaken many emotions, it is the remembrance of those lost and the ability to congregate together in mourning that creates the pathway to healing. We must continue to remember every moment of this dark day, mourn those lost, and pray for those left behind who lost loved ones. Today, September 11, 2018, we mourn the loss of many civilians, first responders, military personnel, and the lives of many families that were torn apart forever. Let us take a moment to pray for every one of them. Let us also take a moment to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, are we honoring in our everyday lives those who we lost? Our country is in conflict with itself. School terror, racial tensions, political dysfunction, and much more. Excuse me for 1 second, I lost my place. We all know we are better than what we see every day on the news. The morning of 9/11/2001, we saw police, fire, rescue, and civilians alike run into a burning building or buildings without regard for themselves to try and save people they did not even know. No one asked what political party the victims they tried to save were. No one cared what country of origin these people came from. No one asked anything, nor did they care. What they did care about was saving the life of another human being, and they did this without hesitation, knowing they could lose their own life. We are a country of many faiths, many colors, many ethnic backgrounds, and many other personal beliefs. This is why people come here. Why then, when we are not under attack from evil, must we attack one another? I'm sure no one has a clear answer to this question. Please remember this. At any given moment, an unspeakable act of terror or natural disaster could hit this nation, and we could lose everything that is dear to us. Are our petty differences really that important? If tragedy strikes, are you truly going to care who the person who saves your life voted for? Teach our children to be tolerant, respectful, and understanding of every individual they meet, regardless of how much they disagree with them or their lifestyle. Remind them of what happens when evil is allowed to enter our home, and remind them of those who sacrificed all to ensure someone else's safety and to defend this nation. Teach them that we truly are one people, and our differences are what enriches us. Start to honor all those we lost 17 years ago, by being the people God has intended us to be, and truly be the land of the free, home of the brave, and the melting pot of the world. Let's pray for those lost, those who protect and defend, those who serve and protect our communities, and for each other. May God bless us all, and hold the victims of the attacks on 9/11/2001 in his hands forevermore. Thank you. Everyone, be safe during the hurricane, and God bless you. Thank you. I'll need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Morris made the motion. All in favor?
No full session.
Motion carries unanimously. Oh, no, only you, Marcus.